Maya Johnson lived a quiet life in a small suburb of Chicago. She was a woman who loved books, spending most of her days surrounded by them at the local library where she worked. People in her neighborhood liked her because she was kind and always willing to help. She had a warm smile that made even strangers feel welcome. But despite her friendly nature, Maya often felt like she didn't quite belong. Sometimes when she walked down the street or entered a store, she noticed people looking at her differently. It wasn't something she could easily explain, but it was there. A subtle shift in how some people treated her because of the color of her skin. On a chilly evening in late October, Maya left work later than usual. The library had hosted a book club meeting that ran longer than expected, and by the time she stepped outside, the sun had already set. The air was crisp, and she pulled her coat tighter around herself as she walked to her car. Her mind wandered as she thought about the discussion from earlier, how passionate everyone had been about the novel they were reading. For a moment, she forgot about the world around her and just enjoyed the peace of the night. When she reached her car, she unlocked it and slid into the driver's seat. As she started the engine, she glanced in the rearview mirror to check for traffic before pulling out of the parking lot. But before she could move, flashing red and blue lights appeared behind her. Confused, Maya turned off the engine and waited. 2 police officers approached her car, their flashlights shining through her windows. One of them tapped on her window, signaling for her to roll it down. "Good evening, ma'am," said one of the officers, his voice firm but not unfriendly. "Do you know why we pulled you over?" Maya shook her head. "No, sir, I don't think I did anything wrong." The officer nodded toward the back of her car. "Your taillight is out. Did you know that?" Maya frowned. She hadn't noticed any issues with her car earlier, but maybe she missed it. "I'm sorry, I didn't realize. I'll get it fixed as soon as possible." The second officer leaned closer, his expression hardening. "License and registration, please." Maya complied, reaching into her purse for her license and then opening the glove compartment to retrieve her registration. She handed both items to the first officer, who studied them carefully. Something about the way they looked at her made her uncomfortable, though she couldn't put her finger on why. Maybe it was the way the second officer lingered near her, Dakwar, his hand resting casually on the grip of his gun. Or maybe it was the silence between them, heavy and tense. After what felt like an eternity, the first officer spoke again. "Ms. Johnson, have you ever been arrested before?" "No, never," Maya replied quickly. "Why are you asking me that?" He ignored her question and turned to his partner. "Go ahead and check the trunk." Maya's heart skipped a beat. "Wait, why do you need to check my trunk? I told you I don't know anything about a broken light. I haven't done anything wrong." But the second officer was already walking to the back of her car. He popped the trunk open and began rummaging through its contents. Maya watched in disbelief as he pulled out a black duffel bag she didn't recognize. Her stomach dropped when he unzipped it to reveal several firearms neatly packed inside. "This yours?" the officer asked, holding up one of the guns. Maya stared at him, her mouth dry. "No, I swear I've never seen that bag before. Someone must have put it there." The first officer gave her a skeptical look. "That's quite a coincidence, isn't it? Firearms show up in your car and you claim you don't know anything about them?" "I'm telling the truth," Maya insisted, panic rising in her chest. "Please believe me, I don't even own a gun." But the officers weren't listening. They exchanged a glance, and then the first one grabbed her arm roughly and pulled her out of the car. "Ma'am, you're under arrest for possession of illegal weapons." Maya struggled against his grip, her mind racing. This couldn't be happening. She was innocent. She knew it. But no matter how much she protested, the officers ignored her. They handcuffed her and shoved her into the back of their patrol car. As they drove away, Maya stared out the window, tears streaming down her face. How could this happen to her? What had she done to deserve this? Hours later, Maya found herself sitting in a cold, dimly lit cell. Her hands trembled as she hugged her knees to her chest, trying to make sense of everything that had happened. She replayed the events in her mind over and over, searching for answers. Who would plant those guns in her car and why? The question swirled in her head, leaving her more confused and scared than ever. As she sat there, memories began to surface. Fragmented images of places and people she couldn't quite place. There were flashes of dark rooms filled with maps, and monitors of men and women dressed in tactical gear giving orders in hushed tones. She remembered running through forests at night, the sound of gunfire echoing in the distance. And then there was the feeling of pride, of accomplishment, of knowing she was doing something important. But these memories didn't fit with the life she knew now. They felt distant, almost dreamlike, as if they belonged to someone else entirely. Maya shook her head, trying to push the thoughts away. Whatever they were, they didn't matter right now. All that mattered was finding a way to prove her innocence. Meanwhile, back at the police station, Officer Greg Miller and Officer Ryan Carter were patting themselves on the back for their successful arrest. They had spent weeks planning this operation, waiting for the perfect opportunity to catch Maya off guard. To them, she was just another suspect, a dangerous criminal hiding behind a facade of normalcy. The fact that she was black only fueled their biases, making it easier for them to justify their actions. "She won't last long in court," Miller said with a smirk as he filed the report. "Not with all the evidence we've got." Carter chuckled. "Yeah, and even if she does somehow wiggle out of it, no one will believe her story. We've covered our tracks too well." Neither of them noticed Detective Laura Bennett standing nearby, watching them with narrowed eyes. Laura had been with the force for nearly 15 years, and she prided herself on being fair and thorough. Something about this case didn't sit right with her. The way Miller and Carter acted so confident, the lack of witnesses or credible leads, it all seemed too convenient. Curious, Laura decided to take a closer look at the arrest report. When she reviewed the details, she immediately spotted inconsistencies. For one thing, the supposed tip-off about Maya's involvement with illegal weapons came from an anonymous source with no verifiable information. Then there was the issue of the planted evidence itself. How likely was it that someone like Maya, with no criminal record or known affiliations, would suddenly possess such high-end weaponry? Determined to get to the bottom of things, Laura began digging deeper. She requested surveillance footage from the area where Maya was pulled over, hoping to find proof that the officers tampered with her car. At the same time, she ran background checks on both Miller and Carter, uncovering a troubling pattern of misconduct complaints against them. But perhaps the biggest surprise came when she tried to verify Maya's identity. According to public records, Maya Johnson existed, but her fingerprints didn't match any database entries. It was as if she had been erased from the system entirely. Laura knew she was onto something big, but she also realized she needed help. Whoever Maya really was, it was clear she wasn't just an ordinary librarian. And if Laura wanted to save her, she would have to tread carefully. For now, Maya remained trapped in her cell, unaware of the storm brewing outside. Little did she know, the events of this night would awaken parts of her she thought were long gone, and change her life forever. The hours dragged on in the cold, dimly lit cell. Maya Johnson sat on the hard bench, her arms wrapped tightly around herself. The chill in the air seeped through her thin clothes. But it wasn't just the temperature that made her shiver. Fear gnawed at her insides, and her mind raced with unanswered questions. Who had planted those guns in her car? Why would anyone want to frame her? And most importantly, how could she prove she was innocent? Her thoughts kept circling back to the strange memories that had surfaced earlier. She couldn't shake the images of dark rooms filled with maps, or the sound of boots crunching on gravel during what felt like a nighttime mission. These flashes felt so vivid, yet they didn't match anything in her current life. It was as if someone else's experiences were bleeding into her own. Every time she tried to focus on them, though, they slipped away like sand through her fingers. As the night wore on, Maya heard the distant echo of footsteps and muffled voices from beyond her cell. Occasionally, an officer would walk past, glancing in her direction without saying a word. Each time, Maya hoped they might tell her something, anything, that could explain what was happening. But no one spoke to her. She was left alone with her fear and confusion. The next morning brought little relief. A guard finally came to escort her to a small interrogation room. The walls were bare except for a clock ticking loudly above the door. Maya sat at a metal table, her hands clasped together in front of her. Across from her sat Detective Laura Bennett, the same woman who had been quietly observing Officers Miller and Carter the night before. Detective Bennett introduced herself calmly, her tone measured and professional. "Ms. Johnson, I'm here to ask you some questions about last night. I know this has been difficult for you, but I need you to answer honestly." Maya nodded, grateful for the chance to speak. "I already told the other officers I didn't do anything wrong. Those guns weren't mine. Someone must have put them there." Bennett studied her face carefully. "Do you have any idea who might want to set you up?" Maya hesitated. "No. I don't think so. I keep to myself mostly. I work at the library and I don't really get into trouble. This doesn't make sense." Bennett leaned back in her chair, tapping a pen against the table. "You said you've never owned a gun, correct?" "That's right," Maya replied firmly. "I've never even held one, as far as I can remember." Something flickered in Bennett's eyes, a mix of curiosity and suspicion. "As far as you can remember? What do you mean by that?" Maya hesitated again, unsure how much to share. But something about Bennett's calm demeanor made her feel safe enough to open up. "It's complicated. Last night, after everything happened, I started having these weird memories. Like flashes of things I don't think actually happened to me. There were soldiers, weapons, missions. I don't know where they came from, but they don't fit with my life now." Bennett raised an eyebrow, clearly intrigued. "That's unusual. Have you ever experienced anything like this before?" "No," Maya admitted. "It's like my brain is trying to tell me something, but I can't figure out what." Bennett scribbled a few notes on her pad, then leaned forward slightly. "Okay, Ms. Johnson. Let's say, for argument's sake, that these memories are real. Do you have any idea why you wouldn't remember them until now?" Maya shook her head. "I don't know, maybe it's stress, or maybe—" She trailed off, unsure how to finish the thought. "Or maybe someone wanted you to forget," Bennett finished softly. The words hung in the air between them. Maya felt a chill run down her spine. Could that be true? Had someone deliberately erased parts of her memory? And if so, why? After the interview, Bennett returned to her desk, deep in thought. Something about Maya's story didn't add up, and it wasn't just the planted evidence or the inconsistencies in the arrest report. There was something bigger going on here, something that went beyond a simple case of racial profiling. She pulled up Maya's file again, scrolling through the sparse details available. Everything seemed normal on the surface. A clean record, steady employment, no criminal history. Yet when she cross-referenced Maya's name with federal databases, she hit a dead end. No fingerprints, no military service records, not even a social security number matched the one listed on Maya's ID. Frustrated but undeterred, Bennett decided to dig deeper. She reached out to a contact she trusted within naval intelligence, hoping to learn more about Maya's background. The response she received was cryptic and unsettling. "Drop the case for your own safety." Bennett frowned, leaning back in her chair. That kind of warning only confirmed her suspicions. There was more to Maya Johnson than met the eye. Whoever she really was, powerful people didn't want her secrets exposed. Back in her cell, Maya struggled to stay calm. Time seemed to stretch endlessly, each minute heavier than the last. To distract herself, she focused on the fragments of memories still swirling in her mind. Slowly, she began piecing them together, trying to make sense of the disjointed images. 1. Memory stood out above the others, a training exercise in a dense forest. She was part of a team moving silently through the trees under cover of darkness. She remembered the weight of equipment on her back, the sharp smell of earth and leaves, and the adrenaline coursing through her veins. In that moment, she hadn't been Maya Johnson, the librarian. She had been someone else entirely. Someone strong, capable, and fearless. These thoughts gave her a strange sense of comfort even as they terrified her. If these memories were real, then who was she really? And why had she forgotten? Later that afternoon, another inmate was brought into the holding area. The woman was loud and aggressive, shouting insults at the guards as they locked her in the adjacent cell. When dinner trays were delivered, she turned her anger toward Maya. "What are you looking at?" the woman snapped, glaring through the bars. Maya flinched, but didn't respond. She tried to ignore the hostility, focusing instead on eating the bland food provided to her. But the woman wasn't satisfied. Moments later, she lunged toward the shared wall, grabbing a makeshift weapon, a shard of broken plastic, and hurled it at Maya. Reacting purely on instinct, Maya dodged the projectile and moved closer to the bars. Without thinking, she grabbed the woman's wrist, twisting it until the improvised weapon fell harmlessly to the ground. Then, with surprising strength and precision, she pinned the woman against the wall, holding her there until she stopped struggling. For a brief moment, silence filled the room. Even the other inmates stared in shock. Maya released her grip slowly, stepping back as reality sank in. What had just happened? She had acted without hesitation, almost as if her body knew exactly what to do. Her heart pounded as she realized the truth. Whatever those memories were, they weren't random. They were part of her. A side of her she had forgotten existed. By evening, news of the incident spread among the staff. Officers whispered about the dangerous suspect who had taken down another inmate with ease. Word eventually reached Officers Miller and Carter, who exchanged uneasy glances. Neither of them had expected Maya to display such skill or composure. "She's not just some librarian," Carter muttered, flipping through the case file again. "There's something off about her." Miller nodded grimly. "We'll deal with her tomorrow. For now, let's hope she stays quiet." But Maya wasn't planning to stay quiet for long. As she lay on the narrow cot in her cell, her mind buzzed with newfound clarity. Whatever secrets lay buried in her past, she needed to uncover them. Not just to clear her name, but to understand who she truly was. And she knew one thing for certain. Waiting around for answers wasn't going to help her. It was time to take matters into her own hands. The night was long, and sleep didn't come easily to Maya. Every time she closed her eyes, fragments of memories flooded her mind. Images of dark forests, tactical gear, and whispered commands. Each memory felt like a puzzle piece she couldn't quite fit together. But there was one thing she knew for sure now. The person she had been before wasn't the same as the person sitting in this cold cell. Whoever she really was, she had skills. Skills that had saved her earlier when the other inmate attacked. As dawn broke, Maya sat up on the hard cot, her thoughts clearer than they had been in days. She realized she couldn't rely on anyone else to get her out of this mess. The police weren't going to help her, and even Detective Bennett, who seemed kinder than the others, wasn't likely to risk her career for someone like Maya. No, if she wanted freedom and answers, she would have to take matters into her own hands. Maya began observing everything around her with sharp focus. She noticed how the guards moved through the halls, their routines predictable and mechanical. She memorized the sounds of footsteps, the clinking of keys, and the timing of meal deliveries. She paid attention to the weak spots in the holding area, the places where the bars were slightly rusted or the cameras didn't cover every corner. Her instincts told her these details mattered, though she wasn't entirely sure why yet. Later that morning, another guard came to escort her to the interrogation room. This time, Officers Miller and Carter were waiting for her. Their expressions were smug, almost triumphant, as if they already knew they had won. Maya kept her face neutral, refusing to show any fear. "Let's cut to the chase," Officer Miller said, leaning forward. "We know you're hiding something, Ms. Johnson. Those guns in your car? They're top-of-the-line military-grade weapons. Not exactly the kind of thing an ordinary librarian carries around." "I already told you I don't know anything about those guns," Maya replied evenly. "Someone planted them there." "Officer?" Carter smirked. "Sure, and we're supposed to believe that? Come on, Maya, you're smarter than that. Why don't you just admit what you did?" Maya clenched her fists under the table but forced herself to stay calm. "I'm not admitting to something I didn't do." Miller leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms. "Fine. Have it your way, but let me tell you something. You're not walking out of here anytime soon. We've got all the evidence we need to lock you up for good." Maya didn't respond. Instead, she focused on the officer's body language, the subtle cues that revealed their arrogance. They thought they had her cornered, that she was powerless. They didn't realize how wrong they were. Back in her cell, Maya replayed the conversation in her mind. She needed to act quickly, before the officers could fabricate more lies or destroy any chance of proving her innocence. Her memories continued to surface, bringing with them a growing sense of confidence. She remembered training exercises where she had learned to disable opponents with precision. She recalled strategies for navigating hostile environments and finding escape routes. These weren't just random flashes. They were tools she could use. That evening, chaos erupted in the holding area. A power outage plunged the facility into darkness, and the emergency lights flickered on sporadically. Voices shouted from different parts of the building, and the sound of running footsteps echoed through the halls. It was the perfect opportunity. Maya waited patiently, listening for the right moment. When a group of inmates started yelling and banging on their cell doors, creating a distraction, she sprang into action. Using a small piece of metal she had found earlier, a shard from a broken tray, she worked quietly at the lock on her cell door. Her fingers moved with surprising skill, guided by instincts she hadn't understood until now. Within minutes, the lock clicked open. Maya slipped out of her cell, staying low and moving silently along the wall. She avoided the areas lit by the flickering emergency lights, sticking to the shadows. The guards were too busy dealing with the commotion to notice her slipping past. As she reached the exit, Maya paused. She glanced back at the holding area, where shouts and scuffles continued. For a moment, guilt tugged at her heart. Should she try to help the other inmates? But then she reminded herself of the truth. She couldn't save everyone. Right now, her priority was survival and uncovering the secrets hidden in her past. She pushed open the heavy door and stepped outside into the cool night air. Freedom tasted sweet, but Maya knew she wasn't safe yet. She needed to disappear, to find somewhere no one would think to look for her. And deep down, she sensed there was only one place she could go, a location buried in her subconscious, waiting to be unearthed. Detective Laura Bennett arrived at the precinct early the next morning, bracing herself for the fallout from the jailbreak. News of Maya's escape had spread quickly, and the mood among the officers was tense. Miller and Cheater were furious, pacing back and forth as they argued about who was to blame. She shouldn't have been able to get out, Carter snapped, slamming his fist on a desk. This is a damn embarrassment. We'll catch her, Miller growled, and when we do, she'll regret ever messing with us. Bennett listened silently, her expression unreadable. Inside, she was torn. On one hand, she understood the seriousness of Maya's escape. On the other hand, she couldn't ignore the nagging feeling that Maya wasn't guilty of the crime she was accused of. Something about this case felt off, and Bennett was determined to find out why. She retreated to her office, pulling up Maya's file once again. Despite the warning she had received from Naval Intelligence, she decided to dig deeper. If Maya really was connected to the military, or something bigger, it might explain the inconsistencies in the case. Bennett typed a series of keywords into the database, searching for any mention of Maya's name or aliases. After hours of sifting through records, she finally hit pay dirt. Buried in classified files was a reference to a covert operation involving a high-ranking operative whose identity had been erased for security reasons. The description matched Maya perfectly. African-American female, mid-30s, exceptional combat skills, and advanced tactical training. According to the file, this operative had been part of a special unit tasked with carrying out missions so sensitive that even their existence was denied. Bennett stared at the screen, her mind racing. If Maya really was this operative, then framing her wasn't just about racism or corruption. It was about silencing someone who knew too much. But who would go to such lengths to keep her quiet? And what secrets was she protecting? Meanwhile, Maya made her way to an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city. The address had surfaced in her mind during the escape, triggered by the stress and urgency of the situation. As she approached the building, she felt a strange sense of familiarity, as if she had been here before. Inside, the warehouse was dusty and deserted, but Maya knew exactly where to look. She moved to a corner of the room and knelt down, brushing away layers of dirt until she uncovered a trapdoor. Pulling it open, she descended into a hidden basement below. The space was small but functional, equipped with basic supplies and a computer terminal. Maya sat down at the desk, her hands trembling slightly as she powered on the machine. Files and documents appeared on the screen, detailing missions she had led, teams she had commanded, and enemies she had eliminated. It was overwhelming, but also illuminating. Piece by piece, the puzzle of her past began to come together. Maya realized she wasn't just a librarian living an ordinary life. She was Lieutenant Commander Maya Johnson, one of the most skilled operatives in the U.S. Navy, SEALs. Her memory had been erased as part of a program designed to protect her identity, allowing her to live undercover while remaining ready to be called back into service if needed. But why had her memory returned now? And who had activated it? Maya scrolled through the files, searching for answers. That's when she found it, a coded message embedded in the system. It was short and cryptic, but the meaning was clear. Your cover has been compromised. Trust no one. Maya sat back, her mind reeling. Someone had deliberately set her up, not just to frame her, but to draw her out of hiding. Whoever it was knew her true identity and wanted her silenced. The question was, why? What secrets was she protecting that were worth killing for? As the sun rose outside, casting pale light through the cracks in the walls, Maya resolved to find out. She may have been betrayed, but she wasn't defeated. Armed with her awakened skills and determination, she was ready to fight back and uncover the truth no matter the cost. Maya spent the next few hours in the hidden basement, poring over the files on the computer. Each document revealed more about her past, missions she had led, enemies she had faced, and operations so classified that even reading about them made her uneasy. She learned that she had been part of a secretive unit known as Echo Team, tasked with carrying out impossible missions in hostile environments. Her role had been critical. She was the strategist, the one who planned every detail and ensured success. But there was also something else buried in the files. A series of encrypted messages hinted at a conspiracy within the military itself. Someone high up in the chain of command had been using Echo Team for illegal experiments and covert operations that went far beyond national security. When members of the team began asking questions, they were silenced one by one. Maya's memory wipe wasn't just for protection, it was to keep her from uncovering the truth. As she read through the information, anger bubbled inside her. She had given everything to serve her country, only to be betrayed by the very people she trusted. But there was no time for self-pity. If she wanted to survive and expose the conspiracy, she needed to act fast. By midday, Maya emerged from the warehouse, her mind clear and focused. She knew staying in one place for too long would make her an easy target. Whoever framed her would be looking for her now, and they wouldn't stop until she was eliminated. She decided to reach out to Detective Laura Bennett, the one person who seemed genuinely interested in uncovering the truth. Using a disposable phone she found in the basement, Maya called the precinct. Bennett answered on the second ring, her voice cautious but curious. "Detective Bennett," Maya said softly, keeping her tone steady. "This is Maya Johnson." There was a pause on the other end. "Ms. Johnson, where are you? Are you safe?" "I'm fine, for now," Maya replied. "But I need your help. I know you've been investigating my case, and I think you're close to finding something important." Bennett hesitated. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Yes, you do," Maya pressed. "You've seen the files, haven't you? You know I'm not just some librarian. If you want to catch the real criminals behind this, meet me tonight. Alone." Before Bennett could respond, Maya hung up and switched off the phone. She couldn't risk being traced. Now all she could do was wait and hope the detective would come. Later that evening, Bennett arrived at the designated meeting spot, an empty parking lot near the edge of the city. She parked her car and stepped out cautiously, scanning the area for any sign of Maya. The air was cool, and the streetlights cast long shadows across the asphalt. Just as she began to wonder if this was a trap, a figure emerged from the darkness. It was Maya, dressed in dark clothes and wearing a hood pulled low over her face. Despite the disguise, Bennett recognized her immediately. There was a sharpness in her eyes, a quiet intensity that hadn't been there before. "You came," Maya said, stepping closer. "Thank you." Bennett crossed her arms, studying the woman in front of her. "Why should I trust you? You escaped custody, Ms. Johnson. That doesn't exactly scream innocent." "I didn't escape because I'm guilty," Maya replied firmly. "I ran because I realized I was set up, and not just by those racist cops. They're small players in a much bigger game." "What kind of game?" Bennett asked, her curiosity piqued. Maya took a deep breath. "Do you remember the files you found? The ones about the covert operative whose identity was erased?" Bennett nodded slowly. "Yes. What about them?" "That operative is me," Maya admitted. "I'm Lieutenant Commander Maya Johnson, formerly of the U.S. Navy SEALs. My memory was wiped to protect my cover, but someone activated it again when they planted those guns in my car. They wanted me to resurface, to draw me out so they could silence me." Bennett frowned. "Silence you? Why?" "Because I know too much," Maya explained. "There's a conspiracy within the military. Illegal experiments, unauthorized missions, and people disappearing without a trace. I was part of it, Detective, and now they're trying to erase me completely." For a moment, Bennett didn't say anything. She studied Maya's face, searching for any hint of deception, but all she saw was sincerity and fear. Finally, she sighed. "Okay, let's say I believe you. What do you need from me?" "I need proof," Maya said. "Evidence that ties the higher-ups to these crimes. Without it, no one will listen. But I can't get it alone. I need someone on the outside who can dig deeper without raising suspicion." Bennett thought about it for a moment. Helping Maya meant risking her career, and possibly her life. But the idea of exposing such corruption was too tempting to ignore. "All right," she said finally. "I'll help you. But we have to move carefully. One wrong step, and we're both dead." Maya nodded. "I understand. Thank you." Over the next few days, Maya and Bennett worked together to piece together the puzzle. Bennett used her access to police databases and contacts within the department to gather intel, while Maya relied on her training and instincts to stay one step ahead of their pursuers. They communicated sparingly, always on secure lines, and in coded language to avoid detection. One breakthrough came when Bennett uncovered records of suspicious financial transactions linked to a private contractor named Blackthorn Industries. The company had received millions in government funding for projects labeled classified. Further investigation revealed that several high-ranking military officials were shareholders in the firm. At the same time, Maya discovered a list of names in the encrypted files, former members of Echo Team who had gone missing after questioning the ethics of their missions. She recognized some of them immediately. Others were unfamiliar, but their fates were likely the same. Silenced permanently. The pieces were starting to fit together. Blackthorn Industries was the hub of the conspiracy, using Echo Team to carry out illegal operations under the guise of national security. When operatives like Maya started asking questions, they were either killed or erased entirely. It was a chilling realization, but it gave Maya clarity. She knew exactly what she had to do. Late one night, Maya returned to the warehouse to prepare for the next phase of her plan. She gathered supplies, weapons, ammunition, and gear, and reviewed maps of Blackthorn's headquarters. It was heavily guarded, but Maya had faced worse odds before. This time, though, she wouldn't be going in blind. With Bennett feeding her real-time updates, she stood a chance of infiltrating the facility and retrieving the evidence she needed. As she packed her bag, Maya allowed herself a rare moment of reflection. She thought about the life she had left behind, the quiet days at the library, the simple joys of helping others find books. That life felt like a distant dream now, replaced by danger and uncertainty. But she didn't regret waking up to the dumb. For the first time in years, she felt alive, Not just surviving, but fighting for something meaningful. When everything was ready, Maya stood up and stretched. She glanced at the clock on the wall. It was almost midnight. In a few hours, she would put her skills to the test once again. Failure wasn't an option. Too many lives depended on her succeeding. With a final glance around the basement, Maya turned off the lights and slipped back into the shadows. The road ahead would be dangerous, but she was ready. Whatever happened next, she vowed to bring justice to those who had been betrayed, and to ensure that the truth saw the light of day. The night was dark and cold as Maya Johnson approached the gates of Blackthorn Industries. The facility loomed in the distance, its towering walls illuminated by floodlights that cast long shadows across the empty parking lot. Security cameras scanned the perimeter constantly, their lenses glinting like watchful eyes. Maya crouched low behind a cluster of bushes, her breathing steady despite the tension in the air. She had spent hours studying the layout of the compound, memorizing every detail from blueprints Detective Bennett had managed to obtain. Now, with her plan firmly in place, all she needed was precision and luck. Maya adjusted the straps of her backpack, feeling the weight of the tools and weapons inside. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about exposing a conspiracy that had destroyed countless lives, including hers. Maya waited patiently for the right moment. She watched as two guards patrolled near the main gate, their movements predictable and routine. When they turned their backs, she slipped out of her hiding spot and moved quickly toward the fence. Her hands worked deftly at the lock on a side entrance, using a small device she'd brought along to disable the electronic security system. Within seconds, the door clicked open, and she slipped inside without making a sound. The interior of the building was eerily quiet, save for the hum of machinery in the distance. Maya stuck to the shadows, avoiding areas where cameras might catch her movement. Every step she took felt deliberate, guided by years of training that now seemed second nature. As she navigated the corridors, memories continued to surface, flashes of similar missions from her past, when she had infiltrated enemy bases under equally dangerous circumstances. Those memories gave her confidence, reminding her that she had done this before and succeeded. After several minutes of careful maneuvering, Maya reached a restricted section marked Level 4 Clearance Required. A keypad guarded the door, but Maya had anticipated this. Earlier, Bennett had sent her a message containing the code sequence used by Blackthorn employees. After entering the numbers, the door hissed open, revealing a dimly lit hallway lined with locked storage rooms. One room stood out, a reinforced steel door labeled Archives. Maya knelt down and examined the lock, pulling out a set of thin tools from her belt. Her fingers worked swiftly, manipulating the tumblers until the mechanism clicked. She pushed the door open and stepped inside, closing it silently behind her. Inside, rows of filing cabinets stretched across the room, each one filled with documents and digital drives. Maya moved quickly, scanning labels until she found what she was looking for: records related to Project Shadowlight, the code name for the illegal experiments carried out by Blackthorn Industries. She pulled out a stack of folders and began photographing them with a compact camera. Each document revealed more damning evidence: names of officials involved, dates of operations, and even transcripts of meetings discussing the ethics, or lack thereof, of their actions. As she worked, Maya's phone buzzed softly in her pocket. It was a text from Bennett. "Security team alerted, they're searching the premises, get out now." Maya cursed under her breath but didn't panic. She finished snapping photos of the last few documents and tucked the camera back into her bag. Before leaving, she placed a small device on the wall, a bug Bennett had provided to monitor future conversations in the room. Then she slipped out of the archives and retraced her steps toward the exit. But escaping wouldn't be easy. As Maya rounded a corner, she nearly collided with a pair of guards heading in her direction. Their flashlights swept the hallway, and she ducked into an alcove just in time to avoid being seen. Heart pounding, she gripped the handle of a concealed knife, ready to defend herself if necessary. Fortunately, the guards passed without noticing her. Their conversation focused on rumors of an intruder. Once they were gone, Maya pressed forward, moving faster now. Time was running out. She could hear distant shouts echoing through the halls as security teams scrambled to locate her. Reaching the same side entrance she had used earlier, she paused to check for patrols. Seeing none, she eased the door open and slipped outside. The cool night air hit her face, and for a brief moment she allowed herself to feel relief. But there was no time to celebrate. Spotlights suddenly swept across the grounds, illuminating her position. Alarms blared, and voices shouted orders. Freeze. Don't move. Maya didn't hesitate. She sprinted toward the tree line, weaving between obstacles to throw off her pursuers. Bullets whizzed past her, striking the ground inches away. Adrenaline surged through her veins as she dove behind a concrete barrier, catching her breath while assessing her options. From her hiding spot, Maya spotted a maintenance tunnel leading away from the facility. It was partially hidden by overgrown weeds, but she recognized it from the blueprints. Without hesitation, she dashed toward it, sliding into the narrow opening just as another round of gunfire erupted behind her. Inside the tunnel, the air was damp and musty, but Maya didn't care. She crawled forward on her hands and knees, following the faint glow of an emergency light at the far end. When she emerged on the other side, she found herself in a secluded grove of trees, far enough from the facility to evade immediate detection. Exhausted, but determined, Maya activated her disposable phone and called Bennett. "I'm clear," she whispered. "Did you get the data?" "Yes," Bennett replied, her voice tight with urgency. "It's worse than we thought, Maya. These files implicate some of the highest-ranking officials in the military, and they name specific contractors working directly with Blackthorn. We've got everything we need to blow this wide open." "Good," Maya said, leaning against a tree to steady herself. "But we can't stop yet. Whoever's behind this won't let us walk away easily. We need to expose them publicly. And fast." Bennett hesitated. "You realize how dangerous that is, right? If they find out who I am, they'll come after both of us regardless," Maya interrupted. "Our only chance is to make sure the truth gets out before they can silence us. Trust me, I know what I'm doing." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Finally, Bennett sighed. "All right, I'll start putting together a plan to release the information. But you need to lay low until then. Can you do that?" "I'll manage," Maya replied. "Just keep me updated." With that, she ended the call and powered off the phone. For now, she was safe, but the battle was far from over. As she disappeared deeper into the woods, Maya vowed not to rest until justice was served. Back at her apartment, Detective Laura Bennett sat at her computer, uploading the encrypted files Maya had sent her. Her hands trembled slightly as she typed, the weight of what they were about to do settling heavily on her shoulders. She knew the risks, both personal and professional, but she also knew they couldn't turn back now. Using anonymous servers, Bennett began leaking portions of the evidence to trusted journalists and whistleblower networks. Each file was carefully timed to maximize impact, ensuring that the story would spread rapidly once it broke. By morning, the world would know the truth about Blackthorn Industries and the corrupt officials who had enabled their crimes. As dawn approached, Bennett leaned back in her chair, exhaustion mingling with a sense of cautious hope. They had taken the first step toward dismantling a powerful conspiracy. But she also knew that the real fight was just beginning. Powerful people wouldn't go down without a fight, and Maya and Bennett would need every ounce of courage and cunning to survive what came next. The morning sun rose over the city, casting a golden glow across the skyline. News outlets buzzed with activity as reporters scrambled to cover the breaking story. Headlines screamed about corruption within the military and illegal experiments conducted by Blackthorn Industries. The evidence Detective Bennett had leaked was impossible to ignore. Documents, transcripts, and photographs that painted a damning picture of greed and betrayal. Maya watched the news unfold from a safe house on the outskirts of town. She sat cross-legged on the floor, her laptop open in front of her as she monitored social media and live broadcasts. Her heart raced with a mix of satisfaction and anxiety. They had exposed the truth, but now they were targets. As the hours passed, the fallout became clear. High-ranking officials named in the documents resigned or went into hiding. Protesters gathered outside government buildings, demanding accountability. Journalists pressed for answers, while politicians tried to distance themselves from the scandal. But Maya knew this was only the beginning. Those responsible wouldn't give up so easily. They would fight back, and they would come after her and Bennett. Detective Laura Bennett arrived at the precinct early, bracing herself for the storm ahead. Word of her involvement in the leak had already spread among her colleagues. Some officers avoided eye contact while others whispered behind her back. Miller and Carter glared at her openly, their faces twisted with anger and suspicion. "Bennett," Miller barked, storming toward her desk. "What the hell is going on? You're all over the news." "I don't know what you're talking about," Bennett replied calmly, though her stomach churned with nerves. "Don't play dumb," Carter snapped. "You leaked classified information. Do you have any idea what kind of trouble you're—" Bennett met his gaze steadily. "If I did something wrong, then arrest me. Otherwise, leave me alone and let me do my job." Carter clenched his fists but said nothing. He exchanged a look with Miller and the two walked away, muttering under their breaths. Bennett exhaled slowly, trying to steady her breathing. She knew this confrontation was just the start. Powerful people wanted her silenced, and they wouldn't stop until they got what they wanted. Later that day, Bennett received a call from an unknown number. When she answered, a distorted voice spoke on the other end. "Drop this case, detective, or you'll regret it." She hung up immediately, her hands trembling. Threats like this weren't new, but that didn't make them any less terrifying. She glanced around the room, wondering how many eyes were watching her right now. Still, she refused to back down. Too much was at stake. Meanwhile, Maya prepared for the next phase of her mission. She couldn't stay hidden forever, not while those responsible for the conspiracy remained free. Using the skills she had honed over years of training, she tracked down one of the key players in the scandal, General Harold Pierce, a decorated military leader whose name appeared repeatedly in the leaked documents. Pierce was holed up in a luxury hotel downtown, surrounded by private security guards. Maya studied surveillance footage and mapped out his movements, looking for weaknesses in his defenses. By midnight, she had a plan. Dressed in black tactical gear, Maya approached the hotel through a service entrance. She moved silently, avoiding cameras and slipping past distracted staff members. Once inside, she headed straight for the penthouse suite, where Pierce was staying. The hallway leading to his room was eerily quiet, lit only by dim recesses lights. Maya paused outside the door, listening carefully. When she heard nothing, she picked the lock and slipped inside. Pierce was sitting at a desk, reviewing papers scattered across its surface. He looked up sharply when he noticed her presence, his eyes widening in shock. Before he could react, Maya stepped forward and placed a small device on the table, a recording device synced to Bennett's system. "You've been exposed," Maya said firmly. "Your crimes are public knowledge now. There's nowhere left to hide." Pierce's face turned red with rage. "Who are you? What do you want?" "I'm someone you tried to erase," Maya replied coldly. "But I'm still here, and I'm not afraid of you anymore." Before Pierce could respond, Maya activated the device, which began broadcasting everything he said directly to the media. Desperate to save himself, he confessed to his role in the conspiracy, naming names and admitting to illegal activities. As his voice filled the airwaves, Maya slipped out of the room unnoticed, leaving him to face the consequences of his actions. By dawn, the general's confession had gone viral. The public outcry was deafening, and pressure mounted on authorities to take action. Arrest warrants were issued for dozens of individuals implicated in the scandal, including several high-ranking military officials and executives from Blackthorn Industries. Maya returned to the safe house exhausted but triumphant. She powered on her laptop and saw messages pouring in from people thanking her for exposing the truth. For the first time in weeks, she allowed herself a small smile. They had done it. They had brought justice to those who thought they were untouchable. Days later, Maya met with Detective Bennett at a secluded park. Both women were cautious, constantly scanning their surroundings for signs of danger. Despite everything, there was a sense of camaraderie between them, a shared understanding of the risks they had taken and the victories they had achieved. "What happens now?" Bennett asked, breaking the silence. "For you, I think it's time to disappear for a while," Maya replied. "They'll come after you if you stay in the department, start fresh somewhere else." "And you?" Bennett pressed. Maya hesitated before answering. "I'm going back. Not to the life I had. F4, all that's gone now. But maybe I can still make a difference. Reform the system from the inside." Bennett nodded, though sadness lingered in her eyes. "Be careful, Maya. You've already done more than most people could ever dream of. Don't push yourself too far." "I'll be fine," Maya assured her. "Thank you for everything." With that, the two women parted ways, each heading toward uncertain futures. Maya disappeared into the shadows once again, ready to continue fighting for justice. Bennett packed up her belongings and left the city, determined to rebuild her life elsewhere. Months later, whispers of change began to spread. Investigations into military misconduct led to sweeping reforms, and Blackthorn Industries collapsed under the weight of lawsuits and public outrage. Though challenges remained, the world felt a little brighter thanks to the courage of two women who refused to stay silent. Maya Johnson stood on a hill overlooking the city, watching the sunrise paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. She had lost so much, but she had also gained something invaluable, a renewed sense of purpose. Whatever lay ahead, she was ready to face it head-on.